Welcome to Week 1, Day 3 of Intro to Fashion. Today we're going to talk about technical design. In order to get the most out of this lesson, you will need internet access and Microsoft Word. Let's begin by defining what technical design is. Technical design is an important part of fashion design. It involves drawing detailed diagrams that show how a piece of clothing will be put together. These diagrams are called technical sketches, and they include important information such as measurements, fabric choice, and seam placement. The designers that are responsible for doing these tasks are called technical designers. A technical designer is a designer that uses their knowledge of garment construction, measurements, and fabric properties to create detailed technical sketches and tech packs that show manufacturers and production teams how to make the garment. In a job setting, a head designer would sit with their design assistants to create the look of a collection. They would gather all of the details about the design, fabric, and color. This information would then be passed on to the technical designer, who would create a tech pack to send to the makers. So what is a tech pack? In the upper left corner, you can see an example of a page from a tech pack. A tech pack is a set of documents that includes all the information needed to make a piece of clothing. It includes things like technical sketches, measurements, fabric and trim information, and instructions on how to put the garment together. Have you ever put together IKEA furniture? Or used an instruction manual to put something together? That's kind of what a tech pack is. Tech packs are like a recipe for making a piece of clothing. It helps manufacturers and production teams understand exactly what they need to do to make the garment. A tech pack also ensures that the final product looks and fits the way it was intended to. Think of a tech pack as a detailed instruction manual that explains how to create a specific piece of clothing. Because tech packs are very important in the production process, it is important to know what needs to go into a tech pack to make sure it's as useful as possible. The cover page. The first page of a tech pack is the cover page. It shows the brand name, season, year, style number, style name, factory, and other pertinent information about where the garment will be made. Think of it as a summary detail page. Here's an example of a cover page. You can see at the top that they have the brand name listed, followed by the style information, such as style name, style number, season or collection the style is in, and when the style was created or modified. Next, there is a CAD image, which we will get into shortly. And lastly, sample request information, the size specification, size range, and colors we are requesting samples in. Please note this order is not the same on every company's tech packs, but the information is typically universal. In the last slide, we mentioned a CAD image. CAD is an acronym for Computer-Aided Design. It is a flat technical drawing of a garment usually done in CAD programs such as Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign. The purpose of a CAD is to show the cut seams and stitching of a garment. It is important that a technical sketch is drawn correctly, as a maker will follow the image to create the samples. Tech packs include front images, back images, and detail images depending on how complex the garment is. Now that we have our technical sketch and our main information, let's talk about the construction of the garment. The construction page is a breakdown of how the garment is cut and stitched together. For more complicated designs, individual detail pages are made. In order to be an effective technical designer, you must know how to technically describe stitches and seams on a garment. There are also acronyms used in the industry to describe parts of the garments. Here is an example of construction details for a crew neck sweatshirt. Some basic callouts for this garment would include rib collar with DTM SNTS. DTM stands for dyed to match, while SNTS stands for single needle top stitch. Blind seams at armhole. This means there is no top stitch, no visible stitches on the outside. You would also let the factory know how to stitch the armhole together. In this instance, we could tell them to do a 1/4 inch overlock stitch. Next, you will see that we are calling out the rib waistband that also has a blind seam. And finally, rib sleeve cuffs with blind seams. Please note this is just the most basic information for a garment like this. We could also get into the side and shoulder seams, any taping at the inner neck seam, and any decorative stitches that may be requested. Construction pages can go from very brief callouts to pages full of callouts. It depends on the complexity of the garment. Next, we'll look at the BOM page, sometimes referred to as the BOM. The BOM page is the Bill of Materials page. This page lists out what trims need to be purchased, how many, the colors of the trims, the vendor to purchase them from, and where they are located on the garment. Here are a few things you may find on a bill of materials. Fabrics, thread, structural materials like interfacing, trims like beading or screen prints, closures, inner labels, hang tags, packaging. A designer can request to have the factory send samples of fabric and trims over to choose from before creating their bill of materials. A manufacturer will send fabric cards of the fabric they have available. The card will have swatches of the fabric, the content, and the colors available. Once a fabric is chosen, the designer can add this information, the fabric, content, color, and manufacturer, to the BOM. The last section we will discuss is the spec page. The spec page is where the measurements or specifications go. Typically, you will see a spec page with one size column emphasized. This is usually the size the designer wants samples made in. A spec with measurements for the entire size range is called the graded spec. Here is an example of a spec page. First, you want to list any pertinent style information such as style name and style number. Next, you will need POMs or points of measure. POMs are a list of the areas that you are giving measurements for. Notice on this spec, we measure at the waist, the hip, the bottom opening, and the links. Once again, the more complex the garment, the longer the list of POMs. Next, you want to identify your sample size. Here we have a size small highlighted in our spec, indicating it is our sample size. Your first prototype samples will usually have a spec that only has the sample size listed on it. Once the sample is approved for bulk production, then you would send a graded spec. A graded spec is a spec with all of the sizes listed on it. So now you have all of the information needed to create a tech pack. We've learned about each of the 4 major parts of a tech pack: the cover page, construction page, BOM, and spec. We've learned that these manuals are created by technical designers, and we've learned that they are used as a means to convey design information to the manufacturer. Now let's look at our homework for today. The assignment. Download the file attached. Inside the file, you would drag and drop a tech pack component phrase into the proper page that it should go on. Here is a video to show you how to do the assignment. That brings us to the end of this lesson. Tomorrow we will talk about how designers find their inspiration.